Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while since I've filmed a video like this at all. And this is a video that I wanted to sit down and film the process and the journey of grief, because it's very personable, it's very different for different people. And I just wanted to share my journey of grief, because I feel as though my journey and the way that I've grieved is like completely different to how I thought I would. And I just thought it'd be not nice, but I think it would just be interesting for me to document how I've been feeling and share a different side to grief and a very realistic account of grief. So my dad passed away 3 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago this Thursday, and I've experienced a whole range of emotions, but the emotion that comes to the surface the most is ultimately, I feel, of course, very, very sad. But I actually feel very calm. And I think for me, this is why I wanted to share this journey that I've been on and will continue to go on. This is a journey that will never end. I will be grieving for the rest of my life. It just feels less intense as time goes on. But my initial reaction when I found out that my dad had passed is I felt relieved. And that's obviously not because I wanted him to go at all. But for me, this had almost been sort of like it'd been a long time coming, but not at the same time. Because of my dad's alcoholism, which I will do, like I've said before, different videos on this, but as a result of having a parent who has an addiction, you end up feeling as though you lose them before they're actually gone. And I have been grieving for the past 3-4 years, gradually losing my dad, who I know to be dad. I've been gradually losing him for the past 3 or 4 years. So although it's like, the way I can make sense of it in my head, it's almost like if you have somebody that is terminally ill, and I know that it's not a fair comparison because people can't choose to be ill, but people can choose an addiction. They can't, but they can. People have different opinions on addiction, but it's like, the way I feel is like somebody who is terminally ill, and you know they're going to go before their time, but you always think you have more time than what you have got. That's how it feels for me, is that I knew that I wouldn't have as much time as what I should have, but at the same time I thought I had more time with him. So when I first found out on the 20th of July, I was massively in shock, and I think even like 3 weeks on, which is like no time at all really, I don't know whether I am still in shock or whether this is just how this is my grief process, or I don't know. But yeah, I just felt shocked but relieved, because for the past 3 years I've been expecting a phone call, I've been expecting this news for the past 3 years. And when I finally got the news that I've been dreading, it was like the worst has happened. So nothing nothing else can be as bad as this. Like, the news that I've been dreading to receive has happened. So it's almost like a weird relief, because the worst has happened and it can't happen again. And I don't know if this makes sense at all. This is just like how I felt, and that's how I initially felt. And over the past few weeks, I've been planning the funeral, and that has kept me very focused. I had something to like throw all my energy into, is doing this funeral. And I've still remained like really calm, and it has completely thrown me in a way, because when I think of grief, I think of somebody who is absolutely distraught, heartbroken, and cannot function. And it almost like irritated me that I'm not like that. And I thought, well, what does that mean? The fact that I'm still able to function, like, it's like I'm almost justifying to myself and have like an internal conflict of like, what does that mean? Like, I'm still laughing and joking, I'm still getting on with my day, I'm still finding joy in every day. I'm not absolutely distraught 24/7. I have moments, and it's usually first thing in the morning, last thing at night, where I get quite emotional, and it's mainly just this feeling of like, I just miss him. I just really, really miss him. And that's sort of how I've been feeling over these past 3 weeks. Is like, I'll have moments which I have videoed and documented some of those moments of how I felt when certain emotions or things have hit me for the first time. I've documented it, because talking about it is what helps me process and deal with things. And that's why I wanted to record some of these moments. But majority of the time, I have felt pretty calm. I'm functioning. I'm okay, basically. Like, it feels almost like, how are you all right? What does that mean? And I don't know. Like, I know the relationship I had with my dad was really special. We had an amazing bond over the past 3 years that he had been struggling. It actually brought us closer, because I was keeping an eye on him. So we'd be talking every day, multiple times a day. And before he was really struggling with his mental health, we'd probably speak once a week over the phone, and like maybe see him every 6 weeks. And when things were really bad, a couple of years ago, about 3-4 years ago, I was seeing him most weeks because he needed the help. And I was speaking to him every day, multiple times a day, on FaceTime. And it definitely brought us closer. I'd seen a different side to my dad, and he really brought down his walls of like he couldn't hide his vulnerability, which really was a nice thing to see him be emotional and be vulnerable, because I'd not seen that before. So I know how I feel. I know the relationship I had with my dad. I know the bond that I had, and I don't need to like justify it to myself. But the fact that I'm not sobbing 24/7 doesn't mean that I didn't care, I didn't love him, because that's not at all how I feel. And I think because my grief hasn't been how I thought it would be, or how you would see grief, or how I expected grief to be, it's thrown me completely. Because I am okay. And everyone is like saying like, you're right, like, such a stupid question, are you okay? And when I say like, I genuinely am okay, they're like, oh. And it's almost like, would I rather be a complete mess? So it makes sense to me that what I'm feeling is like normal, because I don't know if this grief is normal. But I wanted to document this journey, and there will be clips inserted of experiences. And the first one that I'm going to put in is I'd been in the supermarket. It was the first time that I went to go and tell my dad something and realised that I couldn't. So I do want to keep this journey very raw, very real, because that's what grief is, and you can't sugarcoat it. So I'm going to insert that clip now.
I'm not sure if I'm going to put this anywhere or where it'll end up, but today was my first experience of going to tell my dad about something and then realising that he's not here. And it was something so stupid. I was actually in the supermarket in Lidl, and I'd always used to call him after I'd gone to Lidl and tell him what I bought, what I'm having for dinner. And he loved German food. He used to live in Germany with my mum when he was a soldier. And he used to eat frikadellas a lot. And so we used to have them a lot as kids. And growing up eating them. Then I've got Lewis and his family onto eating them. And it sounds so silly, but I walked into Lidl and seen the frikadellas, and I just thought, oh, I need to tell Dad. And I was like, oh. So, yeah. I just wanted to document that that's the first time that's happened. And it just sort of hit me, because I think it's my first week back at work doing a full week in a new job. And I think my mind's been so distracted with the planning of the funeral, being in a new job, that I've not processed what I'm planning and what's happening. So yeah, that hit me a little bit today.
So that was the clip. The first one, I had no idea where I was going with recording it. I just felt like I needed to just say something. So I did. And then the second clip is, I think I literally just had that day a meeting with the funeral directors to discuss funeral plans. And again, that was a really productive and positive day. Like, not positive, that's probably the wrong word to use, because obviously it's not positive, but it was a really useful and productive meeting, and it made me feel like reassured with my planning. So I'll insert that clip now of when I had my first meeting about funeral arrangements.
Hi guys, so another update. I've just come back from a meeting with the funeral directors today, and it was really good, really productive, and I would really recommend them. If obviously, I hope you never have to use them, but they're called G Seller. They're based in Hinckley. They're a lovely family-based business, and they've been really good to us. So I had that meeting this morning. The funeral from now is probably going to happen in the next 2 weeks. And essentially, we knew about Dad's deterioration anyway. Like, once it passed, I'd been told that he has deteriorated quite a bit. So the chapel of rest visit would need to happen fairly quickly. And after the meeting with the managing director today, he gave me a phone call received a phone call after the meeting that we had, just to say that chapel of rest visit needs to happen sooner rather than later, like by Monday, because it's just deteriorating a lot. So yeah, that's where I'm up to at the moment. Today went okay, felt a bit not sure, I'm never sure how I feel, to be honest, at the minute. But it's a weird thought that I'm going to see my dad on Monday, and that is like the only time we're able to go and see him. Like, it is like Monday or nothing, basically. So Monday is closure day in a way to see him. So yeah, that's where we're up to at the moment.
So that was the clip about having the meeting with the funeral directors and our plans for the funeral. It was productive. It made me feel positive about my planning for the funeral. And then I don't think, up until those clips, I feel as though in my head, I knew he was gone. It kept saying, like, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. But in my heart, I didn't know it. And the next clip is after, a few days after, I'm not too sure, but it's after I see my dad in the chapel of rest. And that is like a very personable choice, whether you want to go see a family member like that. And for me, I knew it was something that I needed to and had to do. But that, out of the whole of part of this grieving process that I've experienced so far, was the hardest thing that I had to go through. Because there's no running away from what's happened. You are literally looking at what's happened. And there's no burying your head in the sand. It's unavoidable. But it's something that I really needed to do. And yeah, it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, wanted to do. So I'll insert that clip now.
Thought I'd just do another quick update with how things are going. So it's 1 week today until we have the funeral, and such a mixture of emotions. The beginning of the week, so today's Thursday, Monday, I saw my dad in the chapel of rest, and I've never seen anybody like that before. I've never gone to see a relative, like purposely chosen not to because I know it would be too much. But you know, chapel of rest is such a personal choice, and for me it felt like I needed to do it. Didn't necessarily want to, obviously, but I needed to, because for me that was closure. I needed to say goodbye. And if anybody's ever been to the chapel of rest before, it's a huge shock. It doesn't help that with the time frames, Monday was the last day and only day where we could see my dad, because any days beyond that would just be too harsh, I think, or too much for the family, because he would obviously not look like himself. And I was fine most of the day. I felt nervous to go and see him. And then I went after work, and I walked into the door, and first thing I seen was his fingernails. They were long, and he would always have such short fingernails. Like, he used to cut my fingernails so short when I was younger, to the point where they would hurt. He'd cut them so short. And his nails were longer than what I normally have, and they were purple. And as soon as I opened the door just a little bit and seen them, that's what set me off. And for me, I just want to keep this, this is my grief journey, so I'm going to share as much as I want to and be as open, as honest as I want, because grief isn't something that you can sugarcoat, and it's personal to the individual. So if any of the things that I'm talking about during this, whatever this video is, please don't watch if you find it triggering, if you find it too much. But this is my journey of how I'm grieving for my dad. So I walked into the chapel and seen his hands, and I knew he was going to be cold, because so many people, everyone's told me he's going to be cold. And he just looks asleep. He's just going to look asleep. He's going to look really peaceful. You're going to find it really comforting. And that, for me, walking into seeing him like that, was like someone had just told me again that he'd died. Like I just found out all over again. That's what it felt like, that he'd died. He didn't really look like him. And I could tell that the funeral directors had done as much as they could to make him look as much like Dad as possible. There's only so much you can do when nature has taken over. And that was really hard. He was very blown up, because he had a lot of fluid. So he was bigger than what I remembered him being. And They obviously, when someone passes, they do, or if you want to, something called embalming, which I had never, all of this is so new to me. I've never dealt with anything like this before. So embalming is where they try and preserve the body. So when the family come and see that person, they look as familiar as to what they look like when they were alive, out of respect for the family and for dignity for the person that's passed. So that can be just adding like makeup basically to preserve the body. They preserve the body and then add like a bit of makeup so that they look more like who they were before. And I think for me it was hard because I could see how hard they tried to make him look like Dad, but his hair was different. I could see how much makeup he had on, and I could definitely see why they said Monday's your last day to see him, like your only day and last day, because you could see, like I could see around his hairline, like the natural deterioration of like just nature taking over. And it was really hard. Like that for me was the hardest thing I've ever had to experience in my life. Obviously I haven't had the funeral yet. It's a week today. I don't know how I'm going to feel when that day comes. But for me, I just don't see it being anywhere near as hard as actually seeing a parent like that and then having to say goodbye. I find it really difficult to walk away from his body because it's like I felt like I was leaving him. Even though he'd already gone, I felt like I was leaving him. So it was very emotional, and they look like waxwork. They feel like a waxwork. I wasn't expecting him. They're so hard. Like it's like concrete. They feel like concrete. So that was Monday, and that for me is when my grief bubble would like popped, because I think this is what I'm telling people anyway when I explain it, is that my head knew that he'd died, but my heart didn't. Like my head just kept telling me he's gone, but like I didn't feel it. I still don't. It's only been 2 weeks. I still don't feel it, but my heart didn't hurt until then. And I almost feel like someone's broken up with me. That's how I feel. Like I feel hurt. I feel really hurt that he's gone. Not even the fact that I'm not upset with him. I'm just upset with I'm just upset with his death. You know, I was 49. That's not old by any means. So yeah, that's where I've been up to. Most of the arrangements and funeral plans are being like confirmed and sorted now. Like pretty much everything's sorted. Pretty much. Funerals really are. I can see why people get so stressed with like weddings and stuff because that's not a good tan line. Yeah, I can see why people get so stressed with like wedding planning because just even planning a funeral has been so stressful. Because there's so many elements. I feel like there's such little information about planning a funeral. And I think this is why I feel the need to share what I'm experiencing, is because I wished, and obviously no one wishes to know this information because you never want to think that this is going to happen. But it does, and it has. And luckily for me, I had my uncles telling me and guiding me what to do and who to call. But because myself and my brother are next of kin, we have to do a lot of the legal stuff because we're next of kin. I'm 23, he's 20. Like what people in their early 20s know how to plan a funeral or know what to do or any of that, you don't think about it. And I feel frustrated as well that I never had the conversation with my dad. And again, a horrible conversation to have. Why would you want to have it? But I never spoke to him about, would he want to be buried or cremated? I don't know that, so I've had to make that decision. I didn't know what he would want. There's no funeral plan. There's no will. There's nothing to tell me or to guide me what he would have wanted. So I'm having to guess everything. And then make sure that it's what he would have wanted. And then also what all the family wants as well. And I think I'll probably do in a completely separate video. Almost like a how-to guide for planning a funeral, because it's not something people want to think about. But if people need to find the information, it's there. Because it has been really hard, and still this hasn't been a straightforward planning. We still haven't got the death certificate because we don't know the exact cause of death. So then it's just different. I don't really know what point I'm trying to make, but I just think it's important. I feel like for me, it's important for me to share. Mental health is all about talking about things, breaking down stigmas. Planning a funeral and losing a parent, there's a huge stigma about not to talk about it, or I don't know, it's like it's too morbid, don't talk about it. But how can you not talk about it when it's a huge part of my life? This is life changing for me. How can I not talk about it and not share something so life changing when I do share my life on YouTube anyway? Or I choose what I want to share, and for me, I feel like this is something I want to share and hopefully help other people if they're going through something similar. Obviously, I hope no one is going through this, but that's not reality. So yeah, that's the update. And I'm not sure when the next one will be. It'll probably be after the funeral now, and we'll see how that day goes. But yeah, that's a week today, and I'll check in with you soon.
So that was filmed, can't really remember, maybe a few days after. I went to go and visit my dad. I'm pretty sure I went to go and see my dad on the Monday, and I filmed that on the Thursday, and the Thursday was a week until the funeral. So those are all the clips that I've got to insert from the process that I've documented so far. And as I'm filming this now, I'm filming this on a Saturday. So this is 2 days after I had my dad's funeral. My dad's funeral was the 12th of August. It was a Thursday. And again, like the way that I imagined I would be at the funeral is I didn't imagine that I would be extremely emotional, because that's not how I had been. And again, that was something that completely thrown me, because it's like, this is your dad's funeral, aren't you meant to be an absolute mess? And I wasn't. But a massive part of me wanted to make the funeral as upbeat as possible, because that's who dad was. I didn't want it to be, it didn't need to be any morbid or any sad than what it already was. I didn't want to make it any more morbid or any more sad than what it already was. It's already going to be a difficult day, and I don't want any part of it to be any sadder than what it has to be. So we had no dress code. I decided no dress code, just come as you are. So I wore a green dress and wedges, like really honestly like a wedding guest as opposed to like attending a funeral, but that's how I wanted it to be. And we had the Union Jack, like the flag, over his coffin. It's definitely not what it's called, but we had the flag over his coffin because it was had elements of like a military theme to his funeral, because he did serve in the army for 5 years before I was even born, but it was still part of his life. And it was the most beautiful ceremony ever. It was honestly the most beautiful send-off, the most beautiful service. And the day could not have gone any better. It was just amazing, everything from start to finish. Every person that we dealt with, like from the lady that led the service to the funeral directors, the people at the wake, like everything was just amazing. Everyone was amazing. And I did speak at my dad's funeral. I knew, because I've imagined his funeral many times over the past few years, and I knew every time I thought about it that I wanted to speak, I need to speak. And I did. Myself and my brother did the eulogy together. We shared some stories and some memories of Dad, which was really nice. And I'm so glad that we did that, because I really felt like it was something that I needed to do and wanted to do. So that was the funeral. Since then, I've started dreaming about Dad. And the dreams of it probably started about a week ago, maybe a week and a half. But he never says anything in it, like he doesn't speak to me, he's just there. And so that's the first thing, like I'm having dreams, but he didn't say anything. Also, I felt for the first time on the day of his funeral, his presence, which I'm not a particularly spiritual person. I don't particularly believe in all that sort of thing. I think when you lose somebody that you love so much and you desperately want to see again, you so desperately want to believe in spirits and souls and feeling people's presence and stuff like that. I really genuinely did feel his presence the day of his funeral, and I think that's part of why I felt so calm. I think I felt quite comforted, because I honestly felt like he was with me the whole day. And the way that I describe it, about how I feel and how I felt, it's like my dad is standing behind me and his like hologram was like translucent, and if I was to turn around I can't see him, but I know that he's there and he's just here, like it's like he's here, he's like a hologram, he's like transparent, he's there. And that's, I always felt like blanketed by him. And I really felt that Thursday that he was there. And since then, I've still not had like a breakdown. The two hardest days for me was the day that I found he'd gone and seen him in the chapel. I guess I have had a breakdown. I had 2 breakdowns, and it was on those 2 days. But since then, I've had like cries, and like I feel like I'm hurt, like it hurts. I hurt. And I think about him all the time. But I've had like those 2 breakdowns, and for me, I think another reason why I was pretty calm at the funeral is because, in my opinion, nothing could have been as hard as the day I found out he passed and the chapel. Nothing can compare to that. The funeral can't be as bad as that. And I think it also gave me a lot of comfort because I'd planned it. So everything that was going to happen on that day, I knew what was going to happen because I'd planned it. Like I'd seen the whole order of service, I'd seen like the programme, I felt like exactly what the lady was going to say at the service. I wrote the eulogy, so I knew what I was going to say. Like I chose, and together me and my family chose everything, and I was involved in all of the decision making / did a lot of the decision making, so nothing was a surprise for me on his funeral. The only thing that was unpredictable was how I was going to feel, but like I said, nothing. I didn't feel like anything could have felt as bad as those 2 days, and it didn't. It was actually a nice day celebrating him and seeing a lot of his friends or old colleagues or people that were in his life speak about him and hearing different memories. It was really comforting, and it's like you learn so much more about him and who he was through these different stories, because I only knew him as a dad. You know, people will know him as a colleague, a friend, a soldier, so many different things, and I only knew him as a dad. So that was nice. to catch up and to see people and hear different stories about his life. But I'm still also very aware that it's only 3 weeks, and I don't know if the grief will hit me like people telling me that it will, or whether this is just it. This is how I'll feel, and I'll have like waves of like grief, that no breakdown. I don't know. So that's where I'm up to at the moment. It's 2 days post funeral. I haven't had the ashes back yet, but I will be having a necklace made, like the ashes into glasses necklace. I definitely want one of those. I've been looking at tattoos that I want to get as well, because I feel like I want to get something about Dad. It still doesn't really feel real. I don't know if it will ever feel real. But what has sort of crept up over the past like couple of days really is like last night and this morning I really struggled because I just felt like I just wanted to give him a cuddle. I would do anything just to give him a cuddle one last time, or just have one more conversation, or just to see him. And like I think it's probably because I had a dream about him last night. That's where I'm up to currently. I will try and continue to document my journey of grief because there's so many milestones that I haven't even hit yet. Like, it's not been a month. I've not had the first Christmas or Father's Day or birthday without him. That's another thing. I think my birthday now will always be slightly like bittersweet because the last time I seen my dad in person was my 23rd birthday in April. So I feel like I used to struggle a little bit with my birthday anyway, to be fair. But I feel like now it'll be like bittersweet because obviously it's a birthday and you have celebrations, but it was also the last time I see my dad. Yeah. So I'll try and keep on documenting as much as I want to and feel like I want to. But this has helped me, just speaking about things and documenting things, and I hope that just by sharing this, I'm helping one person if they're going through the same thing, feeling like they're not alone, especially if they feel like their grief journey is like completely different and abnormal, because I feel like that's what mine is like. Because I've never heard anybody grieve like this before. Maybe I haven't even started grieving yet. I don't know. I haven't started any bereavement counselling yet, which is another thing that will be starting soon. I haven't got a date, but I know that I will definitely have bereavement counselling, go back into counselling. Yeah, I think it's important to start conversations and be open and talk about things, because mental health is a killer, obviously. So yeah, I don't know when my next video will be or what it will be, and at some point I will go back to normal content that isn't grief related, but at the minute it's all I want to talk about because it's all my life is at the moment. So yeah, that's it for this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Bye guys.